So the next question I have for you, Phil, is in regards to nutrition and how to fuel your body properly for sprint date. So this user asks, would you personally recommend a fasted sprint date? If doing a fasted sprint date, is the window still 2 hours before you can consume any carbs or sugar?
That's a great question. A few years ago, that type of training was made popular, but it's made popular for people that train in the morning, typically. So they get up before they have any breakfast, exercise hard, and it was more of a high intensity interval training program than actually sprint cardio they were doing. So it was like a 1 minute long, 1 minute off, which is not quite sprint intensity, as we talked about in the earlier question. And so I don't recommend it, but at the same time, I can understand why people do it, that exercise in the morning. If you get up, you're not hungry, and it's time to exercise, or you're going to miss work, then go for it. And so I wouldn't recommend fasting before, but if you have to, you have to, and your body takes things that are not just perfect world and makes them work in a great way. And so in a perfect world, what we teach is, what the research shows is, getting approximately 20 to 25 grams of protein after training is positive. But if you use John Ivey's research, look at a ratio of 4-to-1 carbs to protein, which definitely starts the recovery process faster. But when you're looking at fast twitch 2A and 2X recovery, it's really a 48-hour process. So if you slightly delay that, I don't think there's going to be that many negatives into it. And also, the big part of it is, if you get a high glycemic carbohydrate and put a lot. So if you were to do sprint 8 on an empty stomach and then eat a Snickers bar, that spikes insulin. And what we know from the research, and it's conclusive in the research, that when you spike, a rise of insulin is okay, but a spike of insulin releases a hormone called somatostatin, and its primary focus is to regulate growth hormone. It will shut down that 2-hour synergy window where growth hormone is circulating for 2 hours after sprint 8 if you spike insulin. So it's not a good idea to get a Snickers bar or something like that, or get high quality or low quality, high burn type carbohydrates, because that spikes insulin. The mere fact that you have protein in your belly somewhat mitigates the glycemic impact of the carbs. But in the real world, you probably don't want much more than 3 to 5 grams of sugar with the protein after training to maximize that 2-hour synergy window.
That's great advice. And I think it's something to keep in mind too, because, someone, you finish a hard workout, and sometimes you're so quickly reaching for like a sugary sports electrolyte drink, or even a lot of like what are marketed as healthy, fitness bars have a lot of sugar. So it's just a good thing for anyone who's doing sprint day to know, if you're trying to maximize your results, you really got to watch what you're eating after your workout and really prioritizing that protein.
Early on, I've had nutrition experts say, Phil, you're going to kill yourself. You're swimming way upstream, because 20 years ago, when I wrote the first book, was actually 1999, published, the early 2000. But what happened is, when I said you got to watch carbohydrates after, the glycemic index of carbohydrates afterwards, the world was teaching you want to start recovery immediately when you finish, and you've got to get these carbs. It doesn't make any difference what type of carbs. That research was done by Dr. John Ivey, University of Texas, and it's great research. He's a great researcher, but that was done on young cyclists who need to recover for like Tour de France type events, where recovery is everything, not maximizing growth hormone for the fitness benefit, the muscle building benefit, the fat reducing benefit. They're just looking at the fastest recovery possible. Where in my world, where we're trying to improve fitness, we want to maximize growth hormone, number one. And so therefore, once you do sprint 8, you have that 2-hour synergy window where it's circulating. You just don't want to release the hormone somatostatin that shuts it down. And the number one way to do that is to spike insulin. And so there's a variable in there. I get asked all the time, well, what can we eat? We can't really tell you, because it depends on where you are on the metabolic syndrome scale. So if we looked at a scale of people when they're young, lean and mean, their body processes glucose normally. They don't have a lot of body fat. They have muscle. Your body's very efficient at the way it deals with sugar. But as we age all the way up to putting on a little body fat, reducing muscle, becoming pre-diabetic and diabetic, as we make that trip through life up to that point, where you are on the muscle body fat composition is your resistance to insulin. And so that determines a lot. So it depends on where you are as to what you can have as far as carbohydrates afterwards. So in a perfect world, you get 4-to-1 carbs and protein, get about 20, 25 grams of protein. But most people, particularly middle-aged and older, need to watch the glycemic impact of the carbs. So you got to become an expert at the glycemic index to know what type of carbohydrate you can have. Because even simple things like sugar from a banana or fruit, for example, can spike insulin. So we all have to become a student of that because as we age, because it's a variable all our lives.
I think so many, aging adults complain of that they start to see, their body's just not processing things as efficiently as before. And it's easier for them to put on weight, or it's harder for them to maintain a lean figure, which I know you then therefore obviously recommend Sprint 8 very highly, because it's, you're boosting your growth hormone in ways that maybe your body has never seen if you haven't been an avid exerciser. So that's great advice to anyone of any age group.
And the big point there would be is we're forcing the body to recruit muscle fiber that doesn't normally get recruited. So a lot of the big mistake we've made in fitness is we've said, okay, you're through playing college football, now go run a marathon. Take both types of fast switch fiber, in other words, and throw it out the window. Don't recruit it anymore because you don't need it. You just need to run long distances. And there's nothing wrong with running long distances, but you still want to keep both types of fast switch fiber strong all your life. Like you can go to any master swimming meet or master track and field meet and look at the sprinters that are 60, 70, 80 years old. Their muscles are full. They look about 30 years younger than their counterparts because they work all three muscle fiber types during their training. And great things happen when you do that. And so a lot of times you can look into exercise phys books and you'll see, well, this is the muscle fiber of somebody that's young. It's complete, it's full. You see all three fiber types in there and everything looks good. You compare, well, this is somebody that's aging. It's 70 years old. Look, see how half of it's kind of wrinkled. It's just not. And what you see is about a third of their muscle looks just like the younger person, the slow twitch fiber, because they've continued exercising a slow twitch fiber, but they've thrown the other two fiber types out the door. That fiber is still there. It's still in your body. It's just small and wimpy because we don't recruit it. And so that's what Sprint 8's attempting to do. It's attempting to get people in a very safe way to recruit all three muscle fiber types in a very time efficient way, 3 times a week, 20 minutes, of which 4 minutes is really hard to recruit that fiber, to build it back in those muscle groups propelling the movement, to build it back, to get it stronger over time. So now, as we get older, we've got a tool to help us not create a greater disparity between body fat and muscle. Now we've got a tool to build muscle, not just the muscles you're working, but also through a natural injection of growth hormone. You go to a lot of these anti-aging centers, one of the big things that they're getting is growth hormone. It's effective, it works. It's illegal for Olympic athletes to inject it because it improves performance, because it makes them stronger and helps pull off body fat. Our argument is you can do the same thing naturally if you train like a sprinter, but do it on a recumbent cycle or an upright cycle, elliptical, a treadmill. You can do the same thing with Sprint 8 in your gym, and you don't have to do it every day. 3 days a week is the max. You just don't get much more benefit on more days. And we can actually prove it that it would be better to stick to 3 days a week than 4 or 5 days a week, for example.